Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Car enthusiasts and drama seekers, buckle up as we uncover more of this jaw-dropping saga of one entitled aunt's relentless greed. Today in the rLounge, start your engines. Entitled aunt achieves ultra greed status and attempts to steal vehicles willed to nephew. Little backstory. My aunt has always had a greedy streak ever since I was a kid. She's the type of person that will yell at the store employee because something that was advertised isn't in stock or not at that particular store or not on sale and has been banned from entering multiple stores. When my grandmother was on her deathbed, my aunt had talked her way into getting my grandmother to sign her on as an executor of the will and ended up taking everything and anything that had the most value. Fast forward. My uncle was my best friend. I always looked up to him as a kid. He was a truck driver, so he would be gone for a long time, and I remember one summer he even took me with him on the road. But sadly my uncle had cancer, and while he was in the hospital, my aunt had tried to get him to assign her as an executor of his will. But since he was quick to pick up on what happened when my grandmother passed away, he hired a professional estate lawyer that would take care of everything. If you can imagine, my aunt was not very happy and was quick to throw out a sob story of how offended she was that her brother couldn't entrust her with an important task. This went on for 2 weeks. Even on his last day in hospice, she still brought it up and was asked to leave by nurses. He passed away peacefully in 2011. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but I quickly found out why my aunt was, so we were all asked to gather at my mom's home where the estate lawyer came to tell us who was getting what. So finally, my time came on the list, and I was surprised to have anything willed to me. What did my uncle will to me? Why, his rig and car, of course. My uncle's rig is 2008 Lone Star International, which was fully loaded. My uncle's car is a 1966 Chevelle SS. My first thought was, what the hell am I going to do with this big rig? My aunt's first thought? Well, she didn't have a first thought. She just screamed and cussed at the lawyer, saying that I was too sick to have those things and didn't deserve them because I was his nephew and not his sister. The lawyer asked her to sit down and he would get to her. When my aunt sat down, she looked at me and said, "You're giving me the title to both of those." To which I laughed and said, "In your dreams, maybe." The lawyer kept going down the list, and because my uncle was a legend, he put my aunt at the bottom of the list and said to quote, "To my sister, I am leaving her my luckiest, most important dollar, because all present at this meeting will know she needs it most." And then was handed the dirtiest looking Canadian $1 coin, which was sealed in a block of acrylic. Myself, my dad, and my other uncles nearly wet ourselves laughing. My aunt, however, didn't find it that funny and instead went to another tirade on how this was unfair and saying she didn't have anything to hold on that was his. The day passed and then the nightmare began. My aunt would call over and over and over asking about the truck, wanting to buy the car, if I was going to sell the truck, if I was going to sell the car, all to which I said no. Things got worse when my aunt started saying that she wanted her car and she had someone that wanted to buy our truck. At this point, I got extremely irritated and said it's not your car, it's my car. And my car is staying with me. And it's not our truck, it's my truck. And no one is buying it. A week later, I woke up and heard something, so I went to investigate. And there was a tow truck in the driveway. I quickly told the tow truck driver, who was a friend of my aunt, that if he so much as put a hand on that Chevelle, I would have him arrested for trespassing and grand theft, and then proceeded to call the police. Cops showed up, and I told the police officer my side of the story. Then he went to my aunt, and the conversation went like this. "Ma'am, can you tell me, is this your car?"
"Yes, it is. He just won't give it to me."
"Ma'am, do you have the title of the vehicle?"
"No, I do not. He won't give it to me."
"Well, ma'am, I looked at the registration and title of the vehicle, and he is listed as the owner of the vehicle. That vehicle is legally not yours, and having it towed could land you and your friend prison time for auto theft."
"Well, I think I am the one who should get the car because he can't even take care of himself."
"Ma'am, it doesn't matter what you think. What matters is legal ownership, which you do not have." A week later, my aunt had attempted to take me to court for the car, which the case wasn't even put before a judge. My aunt refiled the claim again. It went to court, and once I proved a copy of the will, title, and registration, the judgment went in my favor, and my aunt was forced to pay my court costs after dismissing my aunt's claims with prejudice, meaning she can never file that lawsuit again. Then, tragedy struck. This time, a great uncle passed away. I was on the will. Again. Can you guess what was left to me? A new car. My great uncle's 1967 Chevy Impala SS, which he restored himself. My great aunt, his widow, was thrilled that I got it, but the mood was quickly soured when she realized that my entitled aunt, her niece, really was not thrilled that I got it. This time, she stepped it up a notch and skipped the screaming and complaining and instead went to scheming. 3 days after I took possession of the Impala, she rented not just one flatbed, but 2 flatbeds. She managed to get the Impala onto the flatbed and sped off, leaving her boyfriend behind, attempting to get the Chevelle on his flatbed as quickly as he could, while I stood on the phone with police. Police quickly caught up with my aunt and arrested her. Her boyfriend was arrested in my driveway and soiled himself in the process. Her and her boyfriend both were hit for 2 counts of motor vehicle theft. Both were charged and found guilty and sentenced to 2 years and 2 days in jail. Endpoints. I haven't spoken to or heard from my aunt since she got out of prison, and I have no desire to. Before she was released from jail, I filed a restraining order against her and it has stood since then, but at the last I heard, she is still screaming at store employees, complaining about money, and asking about me and the vehicles. I still am the owner of all 3 vehicles, the Chevelle, the Impala, and the Lone Star International, and I don't plan on selling any of them. I repair and build computers for a living, but more and more I have been getting into auto repair as a hobby. As I do live in Canada, I do not drive the Impala or Chevelle during winter months, but every year I always take my great aunt, who is now 96 years old, to A&W to get a burger, onion rings, and an ice cold root beer in the Impala, which is something my great uncle did for her since he got that Impala in 1970. A very good friend of my uncle's, whom now owns a business, actually rents the Lone Star International from me. He promised me that he would not get a single scratch or spot of rust on any single part of it, and to this day that Lone Star looks factory new and has been all over the world. The guy that rents the truck even continued doing a little tradition my uncle did, which was to get a decal on the truck of the state, province, territory flag of the places the truck has visited. It currently has 31 state decals and 3 province decals on it. My great aunt isn't in great health, and she has told me that she put me in her will so that I will get her cars, which are 2 of my great uncle's first cars, originally left to her in the will, which are 1958 Chevy Impala and a 1957 Plymouth Belvedere Fury, which is my favorite car. I saw the movie Christine when I was 6 years old in 1996. Ever since I loved that car, because she knows that I will take care of it and park it right beside the 67 Impala SS. I can already imagine the fallout that I'm going to get for that, so there may even be another post, though I really do hope there is not. Thank you for reading, and I hope you have a great day and evening. Let's get a couple reactions. First up, if the restraining order is still in force, the greedy witch will find herself back in jail if she tries to start trouble with you again. Please update me, thanks. Someone else chimes in, bravo to your family for not putting up with your entitled aunt's BS, and for recognizing the good person you are. Enjoy your cars as much as humanly possible. Wow, this woman is persistent, I'll give her that. It's wild to think that she thought she had a case and took it to court, but ended up paying all the fees and without a vehicle, and then ended up going to jail, all over a few cars. That seems like such a waste of energy. I'm sorry I had to deal with that, OP. It's just unnecessary stress. More importantly, your uncle sure did get the last laugh with that dollar, though. I'm curious to know if your aunt has a will, or if she plans on living forever and collecting a graveyard of cars. Update 1. EA equals entitled aunt, GA equals great aunt. So I'm not really sure how this is actually done or if I'm doing this right. I looked everywhere and information is kind of limited, so I'll just jump into it. Quite a few things have changed. So to start, great aunt is doing much better medically and she is looking forward to her 97th birthday. I was actually inspired to make this update because I just recently took her for our usual A&W trip, which she loved. Her mind was blown that now A&W sells frozen root beer, which had me laughing for about 15 minutes straight because she couldn't understand why someone would want a block of root beer. I had to order one and show her that it's like an Icy or a Slurpee from 7-Eleven. Turns out, before he passed away, my great-uncle was working on restoring his 1958 Nash Metro, which I think is moderately terrifying because if you crash, that steering column is going to go right through you, and you're going to go through whatever car you crash into since that thing is a little tank. Great aunt really doesn't want to hear about the Fury or the Nash anymore, so she gave me the title to the Fury. My cousin really wanted the Nash, which my aunt obliged him, and I'm not even disappointed because I think that thing is ugly as sin. Entitled aunt found out about it and threw a fit, was on her way to my house, but without me even knowing this took place, I was surprised to find out that my mom had actually called police, and police had called her, entitled aunt, to tell her that if she set foot on my property, then that would violate the protection order, and she would be charged. And so she had best stop the car, turn around, and head home. Well, she couldn't get the Plymouth Fury, but by golly, she was going to try to get that Nash Metro. My cousin had called me and told me that she actually went to his house, under the pretense of a pleasant visit, and said that the visit went nicely for maybe an hour, and then suddenly the Gollum switch was flipped, and she started listing off reasons as to why he needs to give her the Nash, such as, when she was little, she would ride in the Nash. She deserved it. He wouldn't take care of it. Also, because he has a 66 Pontiac GTO that I have been trying to buy off of him for 7 years. It would be much safer at her place, despite the fact that he lives about 20 miles from where I live in the middle of nowhere. All of these did not faze my cousin, and instead, he told her to get out of his house after citing the reason of how it was kinda his dad's car. He had to deal with her pestering him for around 7 months, and then he finally just blocked any form of contact with her. She hasn't tried anything since. Great aunt then went on to sell the farm, which upset entitled aunt even more, because that's one thing she can't have, and it is even in the will that my cousin and I retain the vehicles at all times, and now my cousin gets the house in town, which was changed from entitled aunt to my cousin. And so the dust has settled, and now things are all good. Now some pretty good things have come out of this. So number one is when I found out that my mom was the one that called the police on my aunt, that led me to talk to my mom for the first time in 5 or 6 years, and now we are on speaking terms. I also have a much better relationship with my cousin since we were never really that close to each other to begin with. And he was blown away at the fact that I have a full-on machine shop on my property. So on weekends, we will be in the shop talking, and he's been helping me with my project. My project is, I found a Lincoln Continental MK3, and ever since I was a kid, it's been a dream to have the car from the movie. Well, the car. So we have started chopping the crap out of it and making everything by hand to get it to look perfect. The Impala, Chevelle, and Lone Star are all doing great. The Lone Star had a bit of a hiccup, and the entire transmission and engine needed to be replaced, but Lone Star actually said that the engine should have been replaced long ago, so that all got done and signed off on, along with a new hitch plate being installed on it. My uncle's friend still rents the Lone Star from me for his business, and he even got a custom decal put on the trailer for it of a chicken hawk. My uncle's nickname was Chicken Hawk, and now has 42 state decals on it, up from 31, and 6 provincial decals, up from 3. Me and my cousin both got invited to a car club because we were at a recent car show. A friend of ours had recent dealings with this car club. They gave him some of the money needed to restore a 1951 Studebaker Woody, and once the car was complete, they actually had taken him to court to get the car, which now sits in their showroom. So me and my cousin asked them when our friend is going to get his Studebaker back, and then I said that I don't associate with people that have zero moral fiber. We're now working towards getting him his car back, since legally the people in the car club can't so much as sit in the car without our friend's permission. Since nothing was in writing, he has to pay the car club back, but won't get the car back until he has paid the car club because his lawyer was an idiot. Before I forget, entitled aunt has actually had to come out of retirement, and now both her and her boyfriend are forced to go back to work since they ran out of money pretty quick. As it turns out, having multiple homes and going on vacation 2 or 3 times a year drains your account pretty dang quick. So yeah, that's about it. 5 a.m., so it's time to get to work. Hope everyone out there has a good day or evening, and thank you for your time. Ah yes, there's the motive. She just wanted to sell the vehicles so she could go on living la vida loca. She wanted to coast for her remaining years by selling people's precious treasures. It's disgusting behavior to take advantage of people during such a vulnerable time. I'm glad to hear she now has to work for the life she so desperately seeks. On a lighter note, way to go on a new hobby. Update 2. So I really never thought I would be touching this topic again, but surprise, I'm back. F my life. So let's just jump right into it. This time we only have 2 characters, which will be entitled aunt and uncle. Here we go. So, for those who have seen the last post, I have recently gotten into speaking terms with some of more members of my mother's side of the family, one of which being my uncle. I do need to put a little backstory in here on my uncle before we begin. So my uncle was paying entitled aunt for a house she owned. They have a written agreement, which is almost like a rent-to-own agreement. So my uncle has been paying entitled aunt an inflated sum of money for 3 years in total, of which when that sum hits $64,000, that was it. The house was then given to my uncle. I will say it again. This is in writing. Now, a few years ago, my uncle got into a car accident, which was by no means his fault. He was actually hit by a bus driver who was intoxicated at the time, and because of that, he got a very large settlement. Because of that accident, my uncle broke both of his legs, so he gave entitled aunt his bank card, and she was using that to do things such as pay his bills and get groceries for him. Now here is where the problem begins. Entitled aunt and my uncle got into an argument. She kicked him out of the house and refuses to refund him the money he gave her. I also looked at the numbers for the settlement my uncle got, Out of $977,000 by my count, only $125-ish was actually spent on him. So by my count, my aunt has stolen a little over $1 million from my uncle, adding on the money given for the house, which was never returned. I expected this, but I never in 1 million effing lifetimes expected this amount. Like, this isn't a slap on the wrist kind of money. This is big trouble, big bad kind of money. I am effing livid. I haven't told my uncle yet because, to be honest, I don't know how the F to tell him. How the F to tell your uncle, yeah, your sister stole $1 million from you. Also factor into that my uncle is a recovering alcoholic. He still drinks here and there, but he doesn't get blackout drunk like he used to. But he's working for a friend of mine who I told very directly, if you smell alcohol on him, send him home without pay. So I really don't want to tell him and have to go on a downward spiral. I honestly have no idea what to do. I know that I have to tell my uncle this. Whether or not he chooses to pursue it, he won't have a choice because this isn't right. I will make him pursue it. I will give him my lawyer and pay for it. Do I even go to a lawyer for this? So, anyways, I just had to put this out there. It is kind of vague. For that, I apologize. But for the time being, this is all the information I have. Thanks for the read. We'll give you another update when I get this BS sorted out, and have a nice day or evening. Oh boy, just when you think it couldn't get any worse. This is huge. Like, huge. Perhaps you should get your lawyer involved. Cross your T's and dot your I's, and then come with all this to your uncle. The more things are prepared, I think the less overwhelming the blow will be. Update 3. So this is a pretty big update. Buckle up. I really did not want to tell my uncle on the weekend of Thanksgiving, because Canada. So I opted to wait until Monday since it was a long weekend. I got my lawyer at my place. I got my uncle at my place. Sat my uncle down, I put what I found in front of him. He asked what it all meant, and so I had to tell him that the total sum of $977,000 is missing, and is what entitled aunt stole from him. He broke down, couldn't comprehend why she did it. Aside from that, I would say that he handled it fairly well, and even he didn't know what to do, so my lawyer explained it. In Canada, this goes down as financial abuse, and there is good reason for that. Since my uncle gave entitled aunt his bank card and PIN number in good faith, expecting that she would use it only for the purpose of paying his bills and getting him groceries, the fact that she withdrew money without him knowing is what brought that to light. Now, financial abuse in Canada is a federal crime. The fact that the money she took was a settlement, that makes it even worse. This is where it gets complicated. Because of the amount of money, this isn't a civil matter. My uncle agreed to take action, and so what we had to do is get not only the provincial government involved, but also the federal government involved. One thing about agencies, sometimes they work good together, sometimes not. We met up with representatives on Wednesday, 11th of October. They explained how things would be done and what to expect, etc. Yesterday, 12th of October, entitled aunt and her boyfriend were arrested and charged. Both refused to speak without the presence of an attorney, which is their right. Entitled aunt tried to call my uncle, but wasn't allowed to. So she called my mom and tried to tell my mom that it was all BS. I was lying. My uncle was lying. She took care of my uncle. He never paid for the house. She never took anything. Went into detail as to how much of the burden I was on the family, etc. So they already had a warrant to search entitled aunt's house. They did find some of the money. The advisor told us that usually when people steal a large sum of money, they do something called squirreling, where they will stash the money away in a mattress, under floorboards, in walls, door panels, etc. In this case, they found upwards of $87,000 stashed in airplane carry-on bags, so far. At this time, keep in mind that they are still searching, but in order to do certain things, such as cut holes in floors and walls, they do need different warrants for that. All of entitled aunt's bank accounts have been frozen. They have people looking into every single transfer and transaction she ever made. They also flagged my cousin's bank accounts and her grandchildren's accounts. Pretty much anyone that got money from her. Their accounting for the last 5 years is going to be gone through with a fine-tooth comb and a microscope. The way my lawyer explained entitled aunt's situation is this. The more money they get back, the better it will be for her, but both her and her boyfriend are still in jail, saying they didn't take crap. So, maximum they are looking at 7 years in prison. Minimum 3 years in prison. Plus they will have to pay reparations not only to my uncle, but also the government, because the federal government most definitely will be charging her with some sort of fraud, tax evasion. Which I think is an effing joke, because when I was 17, I was in prison, turned 18 in prison and got 2 years plus 287 days of probation, house arrest, for multiple assault charges, but that's just my opinion. 7 years for stealing almost $1 million is F all. I did make a statement detailing how this whole situation came about and how I found what I found, so that will be used in court, but at this point, this is where my involvement ends. My uncle is doing okay. He is doing a few home improvement projects, making shelves, etc. So I told him that if he wanted to use my shop, he could, and he has taken me up on that offer, which is good because it keeps his mind off the whole situation, and I have also noticed that he also doesn't drink as long as he is busy. I will try to keep this updated as best I can, but at this point, it really is just a waiting game. Entitled Aunt's side of the family is, of course, defending her, so once again, I have become public enemy number one, but my mom, uncles, and especially my great aunt are not in her corner this time around. So for the end of this, I just wanted to go through a little bit of a timeline, just for a bit of recap, and it will also fill in some holes. So 2018 was when my uncle had his accident. From 2018 to 2020 is when Entitled Aunt had access to his banking information. 2020 is when Entitled Aunt had also kicked my uncle out of the house he was renting from her in a written rent-to-own agreement. At the same time, Entitled Aunt had also sold her house in the small town I grew up in, which was 3 times larger than, and in a much better area than the house she was renting to my uncle is. After that took place, they didn't speak to each other for almost 2 years. Fast forward to 2023, my uncle wanted me to go over his funds just to get a head start and see if he could get any more money off his 2023 tax return, which is when I found out that around $825,000 was missing out of the settlement he got, and around $100,000 was accounted for, which now leads us here. My final thoughts on the situation. I honestly do think that Entitled Aunt did plan this from start to finish, from selling her house to kicking my uncle out, simply because she just wanted to take more, and that was the only thing she saw where she could take more, and that left my uncle dang near homeless. Do I wish it happened this way? No, I don't. But I also think at the same time, it needs to happen. Hopefully now Entitled Aunt will actually begin to understand what kind of harm materialism brings you all because of fabricated perception of status it brings some people. Thank you for taking the time to read. Have a good day and evening. Now a quick reaction from the community. Dang, I'm glad the authorities are taking you seriously. But now that there's a formal investigation, you should stop talking about it online. I'll be waiting for an update when the case is closed. Good luck, OP. Take her to the cleaners. Of course she planned this from the start. It's what she does. She's only ever been out for herself. And the fact that your uncle put her in charge of this money was a mistake from the start. May I ask why you weren't the one that your uncle trusted to help him with bills and groceries and such? This woman is unbearable, and she'll get hers again. However, I don't believe this is the last we'll see of her. This woman doesn't know when to quit. What do you make of this? Do you know a similar story? Share it with us in the comments below. And thank you for following along today in the rLounge. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you have something you want to share regarding today's content, we want to hear it. See you soon.